So after much deliberation and requests, I've got a PRM hydraulic box. It's not a 150 or a 260, it's an old Delta 20. The 150, the 260, so forth, they're much bigger and there's more going on inside those boxes in terms of how many parts there are. But the principal operation is the same. When I get my hands on a 150 and a 260 to take to pieces, I will do a video to show you more specifically what's in those. But for now, I'm hoping this gives you some clarity and some closure on that request. So I'll attempt to explain this the best I can. So this is your input shaft. Obviously half the casing's missing because in order to show you this I have to take it to pieces. So that's the other half of the casing. So the engine would be on this side, your drive plate will be here and your flywheel will be up against this. So when the engine runs, it's clockwise on the front face, so this way round. So this is always spinning inside, okay? Now if you look carefully, you should see that this hub and this hub are kind of free spinning. They are being picked up every so often, okay? But bear in mind, an internal combustion engine always rotates, okay? So this shaft is always spinning. Now this shaft has a clutch pack, and the one down here is a clutch pack. They are always being driven mechanically, yeah? As you can see now, this center hub is actually the output shaft. I come around the back here. So that's the part that, you know, bolts up to your flexible R&D coupling and then to your propeller shaft and delivers power to propeller. So I spin the input shaft, nothing is happening, yeah? So if I was to put my finger on that, then that wouldn't move. Now, the way that these work is there is a control valve, which I'll come over to here. You may all recognise this. There's your control valve. This is the lever that anyone that's got a box, like a PRM hydraulic box, will have a very similar system. There are different arrangement on the 150s, the early 150s, 260s and so forth. There's slightly different arrangement how they work, but principally the operation's the same. You have a control valve which diverts oil pressure to do different jobs. At the moment it's being sent back to sump, so it's just being pumped round, dropped back in the sump. The oil pump for boxes are on the outside, so this here is part of the oil pump. This mechanism here, now they do actually interlock with each other, but obviously the shaft is a bit taller because it would sit inside here. So when this spins, the oil's delivered around the outside. It doesn't go through the middle, it goes through the outside of it, okay? This is part of the casing. I've cleaned all this stuff, but I haven't prepared it to be put back together yet. So all these faces want polishing up. So this is the main part of the body in the front plate. If we come around the back here, this is the main shaft, comes straight through and supported by a bearing. But interestingly, the second shaft, which floats inside, has a slot, and the pump body, that there, pump body fits over around here. So if you see that, obviously with my thumb here, this is the pump body. The oil pump for the gearbox is spline driven, just like that, off the main shaft. So these boxes are mechanically driven, always mechanically driven, but they use hydraulic oil pressure, and it's not hydraulic oil, it's just engine oil. It uses hydraulic forces to clamp the clutch pack together. Here's a side video to show you how that works. I'll bring you back here in a second. Okay, so this is one of your clutch packs, and I've stripped it down to show you how this works, because these are amazing. I love this stuff, I really do. I like the elegance and the simplicity of things, and making things ladylike, genteel, you know, calm, smooth. The whole thing of being a big 400-pound gorilla, having to go click things into place and clunk things out of place, and it's a man's job, and I just don't like that. I like elegance, I like lightness, and there's always a place to be a gorilla, and trust me, I can pick up a hammer and smash the bejeebers out of something if need be. You know, precision engineering and all that. So I've got a clutch pack apart. So basically, effectively what happens with this system is, let me zoom in here and show you. So these here are oil control rings. Very, very similar to piston rings, you might argue. Now, this hub is constantly spinning, okay? So in order to get oil into here to do the next exciting bit of action, you have to have some way to control the oil, so otherwise it will bypass and leak out. So these rings basically go into a hub and they clamp down, and they will be a very precision fit, and oil pressure, there'll be a bit of slippage or a bit of bypass, I should imagine, but predominantly most of the oil will be delivered into this recess here. So there's obviously this sort of, this diameter, this radius internally allows oil to be delivered at any point 365 degrees of rotation and work its way into that hole there. And when it goes into that hole, that's when the magic happens. It comes into here, and you can make out that there's a very slight hole just there. This whole void will fill up with oil, and there's a rubber oil ring just inside here, and then this bad boy here, right? So I've taken the rubber ring. All it is like a neoprene ring. There's nothing fancy about it. It's just a ring, and this is a piston or a ram, basically. This ring will fit in here, and that's to stop oil bypassing. So what happens? Let me take this little bad boy in a second. So what happens here? I'm pretty sure it's taking it apart now. I can't remember which way around it goes. Doesn't matter right now. I think it's that way around. So that fits inside like so. When oil fills up this chamber, this ram comes out. It's that action which creates a clamping force on your clutch pack here. So you've got drive plates, friction plates. So let me just put this down. Try and get that to come out again. Come on. There we go. Okay, so all these plates are interlocked. Yeah, so you've got 1, 2, 3, and you've got 4, 5, and 6. Actually, it's like that one's been swapped around, but it's spinning in the back. So you have to excuse the rough order these are in a minute, because I haven't actually got them perfectly aligned. So basically, the centre ones, all the splines in the middle would be lined basically up to the inner sort of friction plates are sitting on this hub here, and they're floating freely. Okay, so until oil is diverted into this ram, this piston here, until that's being forced this way, because this lot got stuck to the table because of oil. Okay, so this lot is actually bolted onto the input shaft here. Okay, like so. And there's, as you can see, arrangement of there's arrangement of springs and bolts and guides and that sort of stuff, and pins. Now these are all designed to keep the pack open, okay, so that the hub can spin freely, so therefore no drive. And that's why you can free spin the prop shaft when these aren't in gear. Even when the engine's running, you can free spin them. The reason they pick up and spin when there is no drive being selected and the engine and the oil in it is old is viscosity. If it's cold, the viscosity is thick, and it's kind of just causing this lot to bind together, and it will pick it up. I mean, if you was to put your foot on the prop shaft, and I don't recommend you do that, but if you were to do something like that, you would probably be able to stop the prop shaft when no gear is being used. It's just viscosity sort of driving the plates together, basically. But basically, these are not hydraulically driven boxes. They're hydraulic actuation. God, I can't speak these days, crikey. Okay, these are the similar system to what you get in motorbikes, wet multi-plate clutches. The difference in motorbikes is the clamping force is constantly on, and it's using the lever. It's left hand. I haven't been a motorbike in a while. It's left hand. You pull that in, and that would push down to release the clutch. Where this is different. These are always released until you divert fluid using the control valve to force oil into this chamber to fill up, to cause this ram, try and get the pack here, to work against the clutch pack, and that will squash everything together. And that squashing action traps a film of oil between each plate on both sides, and that will give you drive, that will spin, and that's what creates. So it's mechanical forces that drive everything through gears, but it's hydraulic action that makes the pack clamp and gives you either a head or reverse. Right, so hopefully that video has helped you understand how an individual clutch pack works. With the bigger boxes, like the 150 or the 260 or so forth, there's a lot more plates in them. I will cover that in another video when I get around to doing it. But to go back here, so this is how this works. This is very clever. So these are spinning all the time. When you divert oil pressure into one of these clutch packs, it will lock up the plates and this hub becomes locked. And then that hub, for example, if I spin the whole lot together, I have to put my finger on this here. It's a little bit tight in there because the oil's still in. I cleaned it, but it's still a little bit. So basically what happens is the propeller shaft spins one way with this clutch pack. So let's say we're still spinning, right? I'm trying to do this one-handed. So basically, yeah, sorry, it's really hard to do one-handed. I'll try and find somewhere to put this camera back, and I'll bring you back in a sec. 1 second. Right, I've found an engine part to use as a stand. So, I'll try and explain this again. So the centre hub here is the main output shaft for the propeller. Okay, that's what does all the work. So this is always being spun in one direction, okay, because engines work in one direction only. This is always going, always going. Let's say now we've put oil pressure into this clutch pack, so it will lock and start turning the output shaft in one direction. Okay, that's actually reverse, okay, or stern. As you see here, the shaft here I'm turning is going one way. This hub is being made to turn the other direction. Okay, so let's say you want to go back to neutral. Okay, so then you go back to neutral and everything sits still in the middle, so the propeller shaft in the middle won't turn. It may pick it up because of viscosity, so it may start to bind a little bit and you might get a little bit of movement. But if you was to put your foot on the propeller shaft, again, don't do it because it's dangerous, but sometimes I do is when I'm working to find a way of stopping it, but I'm preparing myself for such things. Anyway, it's silly, but the shaft won't turn basically. So there you go, there's that action. So let's say now we want to turn the whole lot together. So this clutch pack's got the oil pressure going in and locks the centre hub here, and that's now delivering forces to the propeller shaft. And as you can probably just about make out, these two are now working in opposite directions of each other. Okay, this hub's coming the direction that the propeller shaft is spinning, but the clutch pack is going in opposite direction because this one is locked up. Sorry if my hand's in the way, I'll try and show you again. Obviously I can't actually lock the clutch pack. Curiously, in some of the earlier 150s there's a little plate on top of the box. They don't split in half, and they split in half a different way, and there was a little plate and you can actually get in to put a I think it's a 3/8 UNF bolt, I think it is. Anyway, you'd screw it in and it would lock off the front, the head clutch pack, so you could get home if the clutch was slipping. I don't know why they stopped doing that. I'm pretty sure the newer 150s don't have that option, but and part of the reason is because you split the box this way, which is a bit of a pain. But I think the idea is there's so much support now in terms of if you broke down, there's breakdown companies and other such things. But I mean, they even had filters on some of the early boxes. I'm curious to know why they've changed that, but yeah, for now I waffle and sidetracking as I normally do. So this is how a hydraulic box works. I'm bringing this around a bit more, see if I can give you a bit more of indication of what's actually going on. So the engine is delivering power into this hub here, but look at the gears when they're moving. Look at the interaction and the way things are going. So let's now free spin. So now we're in neutral. Okay, so I could spin this whilst that's spinning all the time. I'm spinning the input output shaft in both directions at the same time. Yeah, nothing's locking it up. But if I was to lock the clutch pack and spin it together, then I could spin that all together like that. Okay, same as this, as I spin it. So all that's happening is there's mechanical gear action delivering power through the gears to the output shaft. You're simply relying on basically oil pressure and friction to lock the clutch pack to decide which of these two hubs delivers power to the output shaft, and the rotation of this defines which direction you end up going, obviously. I hope that helps. If I've made a mistake, please let me know. I've been thinking about it all day. I'm trying to make sure I got it right. As you probably all guessed, I'm not a professional video maker. I'm just doing this to try and be helpful and help teach about this sort of stuff. I love it. I think it's great fun. This system, this hydraulic system, has been around a long time. I don't know who originally came up with it. The earliest boxes that I could immediately tell you about would be like the Lister boxes, the LH150s. The earlier boxes had the LM100s, and they're a mechanical box, and they rely on a big old lever to go clunk clunk in and out of gear, and you've got toggles inside and big springs, and you need quite a long lever and be quite forceful with it. And then the LH150 appeared, and it was, you know, using hydraulic forces to disconnect the forward and to activate the neutral, because the old Lister boxes you had, you always had a head. You needed engine running and the oil pressure build up to get neutral or to get reverse. They were called reversing boxes for that reason, so they're not really a gearbox per se. And then you've got the reduction box. The little tub next to me is actually a reduction box from that kind of box for another job. And then the next box I could immediately jump to would be a Henry Meadows. They use hydraulic force to disconnect and reconnect and things like that. But then one of the most common ones that a lot of you out there will have will be the Borg Warner Velvet Drive. I have a Borg Warner somewhere. I don't know what I've done with it, but I think it's under a bench. Actually, I can see it under my bench here. That has a pair of clutch packs similar to this system, but they're two separate. One's very large, one's very small. At some point I'll do a video on that as well, but that uses hydraulic forces to activate each clutch pack and decide how you're going to go. But the way they work is they've got internal gears, planetary gears, and they're very clever. But these are very lightweight, very simple boxes to work on. But this particular PRM Delta 20 was superseded by the 150. I'm not sure what their reasoning for that was. What I do know from what I've seen is the 150 has a better arrangement for thrust bearing. This particular unit, let me bring the camera around to show you. All the thrust support I think is probably on this one bearing alone. I've actually left off the oil seal pack. This holds it also. I've ordered a kit for this, a gasket kit. I sort of cleaned or degreased it all yesterday. I need to take all the old paint off it and prep it all ready for rebuilding. But I quickly assembled it lightly to show you what this would look like. Here's the extra bearing from the end of the output shaft. That's supported by the casing. And then there's arrangement of bushings and nuts and stuff like that that go on there. And these bearings aren't thrust bearings. They're simply bearings. Effectively, they go into. I'll try and show you here. They simply sit into these internal races. So they deal with off-axis forces, side forces. So as far as I can tell with these, all the thrust support is going on this one bearing. Whereas the newer boxes, they went for taper bearings at each end of the shaft. So if you can see here, you've got to have a taper bearing this end and a taper bearing that end. And the idea is that taper bearings, obviously, they're tapered and they thrust back and forth. I'll see if I can put a picture up just here of what a taper bearing is. So there are a number of improvements on the 150. Also, the input shaft on the 150 is much heavier. The splines are heavier duty. Interesting to note that these boxes, the Delta 20, I've had quite a few cases where in order to get this shaft away from the drive plate, I've had to use bars and lube and patience and all sorts, and they can seize, and it can be a real mission getting them off. So I don't think these are bad boxes. I just don't think these were as heavier duty as they probably wanted them to be, so they superseded it. So fair play to PRM. But just the elegance of how this works, it's just ladylike. All you do is gently push the lever, activates your gear, gives you drive. It's great fun. Right, I hope that clarifies a few things. As you can see, spinning the output shaft, nothing happens. I deliver power to the input shaft, nothing happens until you select a clutch back, and I'm mimicking this being locked by the clutch. Yeah, that will turn with the main, and then the output shaft starts to spin. And then of course, as I said before, the other clutch pack locks up, and then that would spin with the clutch, and the output shaft would just spin a different direction. Thanks very much.